Yeah, hi there, this is tuxocho.com again. Welcome on my video channel. Last week, Blackmagic Design revealed DaVinci Resolve in version 21 after a pretty short beta period of 3 or 4 iterations. I don't know it really exactly. Besides other new features in the DaVinci Resolve app, the most important, I think, at least if you go through the YouTube reviews here, is the Photopage in DaVinci Resolve, which is implemented for the first time in this app. According to other reviewers, they might right away this will hurt Adobe, and that you can ditch your Lightroom subscription and so on and so forth. So we might as well take a closer look what the Photopage is able to give you for RAW converting or RAW image processing, and then we will ask the question, or answer the question better to say, if you really can ditch your Lightroom subscription right away. Needless to say that the first implementation of the Photopage with RAW image processing, Blackmagic Design did a really good job for the first iteration, and I think they might even get better after a couple of updates. I could start reviewing this page because now they have implemented the support for Lumix RAW files. Before that, there were only Canon, Nikon, and I think Fuji RAW files, which could be processed in the DaVinci app. But okay, let's take a short look on the performance of the Photopage in DaVinci Resolve 21. Okay, I started here DaVinci Resolve version 21 and already opened the Photo tab. And now we want to import some images here into this new tab. Just go over here, slide that over, just like that, and let DaVinci import the images. If you import images into the media pool, it's sort of advice that you create a photo album from this, because the photo album is sort of taking over the function of a timeline for the still images. You can of course rename it like this one and create one here, and then you have here all your images here at the bottom. Let's say sort of a film strip maybe you used to from Lightroom. Okay, maybe let's go over here to some interesting images. Let's take, for example, that one. Just an example from a church in Tuscany. And here on the right-hand side, you got your usual RAW settings for your images like you're used to, let's say, from Lightroom. Here on this one, you could bring down the highlights just in case you get some detail in the windows here, and of course open up the shadows a little bit like this. And you can of course here with those markers here upright or level the image like this, and that would be your image processing. And here on this side for photos, you could even adjust more, like zoom in if you like to change the position, or do a source cropping just like you know it from DaVinci Resolve in video processing. And here you have further adjustment to adjust temperature, tint, and so on. You could make it a little bit warmer, like so, just a little bit. And what's neat about this one, you not only have the histogram, you of course have waveforms or a parade, where you can see the changes in colors, I think more clearly, even than compared to Lightroom, let's say. And for your skin tones, you have of course the vector scope where you can adjust these skin tones very precise. Like this one, you activate that one, then you have the skin tones. That is this small line here. Okay, let's take another example, like this one here. There you got the same processing values like you're used to. You can bring down the highlight like this, open up the shadows, just like that. And then you could process the image even further. Just like in Lightroom, you have the option here to rate your images with the star rating. You probably know from Lightroom. You could add color markers to the images, like let's say you do a green marker here, and then you can see it here in the bottom line of the image. And you can, just like in Lightroom, sorry for the comparison, but here you could reject your images, and here you could tag them as picked, as a good take. And here on this side you can filter for those settings, so you don't have to walk through all the images. Okay, let's do another one maybe as a short example. Let's take, for example, this one. Here I could, of course, do the same settings like I would do in Lightroom. I bring down the highlights, maybe the exposure a little bit, like so. Open up shadows is not really needed here. Then I can bring up either crop or level the image like this, but I could also straighten up the image completely, so I have at least sort of regular lines here for this architecture. And then I could, of course, crop the image like so to get rid of those blank parts of the image. And of course, what you can do is you go out of this like that, and then you could bring up this image or any other image you selected here on the color page. Maybe I do a couple of nodes, and here you can bring up the all effects you got here in DaVinci Resolve. You could do a lens blur, a Gaussian blur, and so on, or you could add some grain to it or some noise to it. And of course you have the more precise color correction here for your images if you want that to be the case for your workflow. Let's take here the new effect Cinefocus, drag that over to, let's say, node 2. And here you could say that I got only the foreground in focus and the rest gets blurry. That's an effect that you could use even in your photograph. Now, a whole lot of other effects in DaVinci Resolve. Okay, let's go back to the photo page. And what you see here is that you can even import a Lightroom catalog. That sounds pretty neat, but I tested this on my smaller catalog I use for my blog photos. This catalog only contains like 5,500 images roughly. That is not that much, but it took DaVinci quite a while to import that catalog, and the importing is only for getting the storage space of the images, because none of the image processing details, even the simple one like exposure, shadow, highlights, and so on, not to talk about the mask and so on, are imported into Lightroom. The only thing I think is imported here is the crop. If you crop the images in Lightroom, that will be taken over into the DaVinci while importing a Lightroom catalog, but other parameters are not imported, so I doubt if that makes a whole lot of sense. And for the time it has to import a small catalog I didn't even want to try on my regular Lightroom catalog, which contains roughly about 80,000 images. As you could see, you can, I think, do a complete image raw processing in DaVinci Resolve, because most of the parts you need for image raw processing are implemented here, and Blackmagic Design did a pretty good job here for the first implementation of such a feature. The raw processing is done in the raw part, where you have the rulers for, let's say, white balance, exposure, highlights and shadows and so on. And what's pretty remarkable, I think, that you can use the same images after a basic processing, I guess. You could handle them over to the Colorpage, and then you have all the advantages of the pretty good color grading, which is implemented in DaVinci Resolve. But let's try to answer the original question, if this app will substitute Lightroom or the Lightroom subscription model from Adobe. If you are mainly a videographer and do mostly videos, and only sometimes or only to a certain degree you make still photography, now you can process both your video clips and your raw images in the same app with the same tools, and that might be easier to switch between different apps. Nevertheless, if it is Lightroom, Photoshop, or any other raw image processor like DxO or something else. But if you're mostly a photographer like I am, there are a couple of things missing, like managing the images, sorting or organizing them into different collections, as they are called in Lightrooms, and so on and so forth, and apply certain keywords and sort for those keywords and so on. I only did here, as you could see here, only the around 500 images from our last vacation last year in Tuscany. There were only 500 images, and that worked out pretty well. You could even correct extreme wide angle images and so on. But as you could see, you can also import directly from a Lightroom catalog, which is of course a neat feature. But don't get me wrong, the import only is for where those images, raw images, are stored, in which place, or NAS or external drive or so on. But nothing else is important, with the exception of settings for cropping the image. All other settings like keywords, exposure, white balance, or any developed parameter are not imported, so you can't use it. You just have the read in the images, and DaVinci then knows where the images are stored, and that's it. On the other hand, importing a Lightroom catalog, I tried it first with my Lightroom catalog I use for my blog photos, that only contains around 5,500 images. That took a pretty long time to import those images, so I didn't want to try it with my regular Lightroom catalog, which contains around 80,000 images. I didn't want to try that out. And on the other hand, okay, I could take or process some images from my Lumix cameras, but importing this block photo catalog, I occurred some weird colors on some images, mainly DNG file, which I converted in Lightroom to save a little bit of space from my block photos, which I usually only need once, or at least only use them for social media, so I don't need the highest resolution or the highest megapixels for using those images. And that is pretty bad, I think, but even though I think that Blackmagic will repair it after a while with the next update or so, but so far there are a couple of things which aren't that even or without any drawbacks in the DaVinci Resolve app. And there is another thing. If you import those images, you import them into one project, and I don't think you want to have all your images of all the photo shoots in one project. I think if you're a videographer, you read in your video clips, of course, and you still see a shot, like let's say for a commercial or for a wedding or so, and then process them all together with one app. That's the main advantage of this Photopage. And then you can export all those images right away from without the DaVinci app, without changing the app, like for example DaVinci DxO or Capture One or anything else. And the other hand is that it's a question if Blackmagic Design is up to getting close to Lightroom, as some of the YouTube reviews are saying. Maybe I think they only want to support the raw images just for those people who have a project where they also need stills and just want to make it a little bit easier to process everything that is video clips, audio, and of course raw images in one project. So for me, at least right now, I will stick to Lightroom for my photographs, of course. And we have to wait and see where this Photopage is developing to. Maybe someday we get there, if that is the aim of Blackmagic Design. And on the other hand, I had a cureness exporting images from DaVinci and from Lightroom. I exported both in a 16-bit TIFF format. I occurred that the resolution or sharpness from those exported from the DaVinci app is a little bit less than those ones from the Lightroom app. Maybe I just tried out 3 or 4 images. Maybe we do a whole lot of series with a couple of 100 photographs, but that is the occurrence I did when playing around with the Photopage. Okay, that was my little review on DaVinci Resolve 21 with the Photopage. And if this video was helpful to you, you might think about placing a like on the video. And I surely would appreciate if you subscribe my channel, but then don't forget to hit the bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, that was my little review on DaVinci Resolve 21. And all I have to say is till the next time, ciao, tux oche.